Judge Danielle Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan's want to go over the guidelines real fast. Again, this is not an interview. I'm sorry. This is an interview, not a debate. Follow-up questions are not allowed unless for clarity. Each candidate will not answer each question. In this case, you'll answer all the questions. Candidates are allowed 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves. Panel members are allowed 30 seconds to pose a question. Panel members are allowed one question. The question needs one candidate again.
Those don't apply now? We only have one candidate.
Yeah, I see here. Of course, there's not a forum to air personal grievances. Panel members, please keep your questions generic. Candidates, in this case, Judge, please do not mention other candidates in your response. Judge, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Diana Sullivan. I am currently the Justice of the Peace in the Las Vegas Justice Court Department 12. This is my first term. It was a new department added to the docket in 2009. I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I went to Western High School. I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, graduated magna cum laude with a criminal justice degree and an accounting minor. I then went to the University of San Diego Law School. Back then, they did not have a law school in Nevada, so we had to go out of state. I went to the University of Nevada Law School, University of San Diego Law School, graduated in 1992. When I got out of law school, I went to work in civil practice for the firm, what was then known as Jones, Close & Brown, subsequently became Jones Vargas. I became a partner at Jones Vargas after about 8 years practicing there as an associate. I focused in commercial and business and real estate litigation. In 2004, I left Jones Vargas and opened up my own practice with another partner, and we focused on that same type of litigation with the same type of clientele. And in 2008, I decided to run for the new department in Justice Court. Justice Court, in addition to criminal matters, also handles civil matters, which a lot of people tend to disregard or not pay much attention to. And I felt that I could help the civil department or the civil section of the Justice Court and hopefully make some improvements, which I believe I have over my tenure. I don't know if that was 90 seconds.
No, you stuck it. Okay, do you want to start on this side with Judge Assad?
Okay. Thank you very much. Judge, thank you for being here, and thank you for participating and dedicating your life to public service. I know you can make a lot more money if you were still a partner of Jones Vargas. My question deals with veterans specifically. They come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and even the first Gulf War. You've got Vietnam veterans who are suffering from PTSD, substance abuse issues, a myriad number of concerns that pertain and germane specifically to veterans. As a judge, what can you do, or what would you do to address the concerns specifically of veterans with those particular issues and problems?
Well, with the new veterans statute or the new veterans court, we do try to identify those defendants. And when I mean we, specifically my public defender team, my public defender team and I talk about it. We also have track attorneys that are assigned to my courtroom when the public defender team is conflicted off. I have 3 track attorneys that are appointed for indigent defendants or defendants that cannot afford a private lawyer. Oftentimes those attorneys are the first ones to recognize that there's a problem once they interact with the defendant. So to the extent they need services, certainly not every veteran that comes back from the war needs services, but to the extent they need drug abuse or alcohol services, we do have Veterans Court. We have a Veterans Court in Las Vegas Justice Court. However, it's not funded by the AOC, I don't think so. I don't think it's recognized right now as a specialty court. Although under the statute, we are allowed to transfer original jurisdiction of our misdemeanor case to the district court, Veterans Court, because that's the one that's receiving the money. But Judge Tobiasen started the Veterans Court in the Las Vegas Justice Court, and now Judge Kephart has taken over. So if we identify a defendant like that, then as a team, we transfer them to Veterans Court, and Judge Kephart hopefully has all the resources that can be beneficial to that type of defendant.
Thank you.
Of the various filing systems I've used, the Supreme Court, PACER ECF, and WisNet, Wasn't it's pretty clear, I think, with both the attorneys, a dead last choice? Is there anything that can be done by the judges to improve, well, that monstrosity?
We were just talking about this at lunch the other day, Judge Zaragoza and I. As you know, the criminal filings have not gone, at least in justice court, have not gone mandatory e-filing, but in civil they have. And it's funny because she continually tries to improve on that e-filing. I don't want to call it a nightmare because I think it's made some improvements. But what we were saying at lunch the other day was, she said, I need to go to the user end of it. I need to know exactly what the user is trying to file and what's happening when they're trying to file it. Specifically, say, a summary eviction proceeding. That way she can better identify. Right now, though, she is, her and Judge Cruz, doing the e-filing or meeting with landlords and really anybody in the public that are using, and bar, I believe they're holding bar meetings. I know we were when I was doing civil work. Every other month we were holding a bar meeting to see what the problems were in e-filing, because of course we don't know them from the user end until somebody tells us about them. We are striving to go to mandatory e-filing for criminal, but frankly I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if that answered your question, Richard. Right now we invested in the Odyssey, so we're in it to win it right now.
So my specific question would be, as far as, besides the fact that it's current state law, do you believe that judges should be elected instead of appointed? And the reason why I ask this question is because it's kind of difficult to ask individuals to elect judges that don't know much about the judicial system. I'm one of them. I'm not an attorney. William's sitting right next to me, and I know I irritate him all the time with some of the questions I have because I don't know a lot about the law. So why should someone like me, that's a novice and doesn't understand that much about the law, be able to elect judges?
My personal opinion, if that's what you're asking for, my personal opinion is that they should be appointed. But obviously that's not how it is, and it's lost that measure on the ballot. Because voters want to retain their right to elect their public officials, including the judges. So until the voters decide otherwise, we continue to be elected. And we do what we can, specifically this forum where you're going to end up, it's public. Anybody will be able to go on the internet and see these interviews, which I think is great. This is transparency. Obviously we do what we can by way of websites, and my resume and my biography is up on my website. You can contact me through my website. But I mean, let's all be honest, the websites are kind of unilateral, so to speak, touting about yourself. So I welcome anybody to come up to me on the street or out in the parking lot here and ask me about my credentials and my experience on the bench. I just think we would get a better slate of judges if they went through an appointment process.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Brown.
Thank you. Judge, I have kind of a philosophical question. I've seen, I think, in my professional lifetime, that the role of judges has undergone a tremendous change. It seems in the past, judges would just come down from ivory towers to decide how long someone should go to prison. That was kind of based on a view of the world that was black and white. Bad people committed crimes, and the only question was how long they should go to prison. Good people didn't commit crimes, it wasn't an issue. I think that's unrealistic. And I think now, the country and the culture is kind of catching up with the fact that crime often involves mental illness, drug addiction, substance abuse. There is almost always some kind of underlying issue, which if left unresolved, will result in a person coming back into the criminal justice system. And I think slowly, the judiciary has come to that realization, and I think they've gotten more power to be a little bit more proactive, not to legislate from the bench, but to oversee specialty courts and things like that. And I think it's good. I mean, I notice, I mean, you're born and bred. I mean, Western High School, you've lived and worked your entire life here. And, you know, I think now a judge has an opportunity and kind of a duty to play more of an active role in the community. And, you know, the reality also is that diversionary courts save money. You know, every dollar you spend on drug court, you save 10 because the guy gets clean and doesn't commit more crimes.
Counselor, excuse me, there's supposed to be a 30-second, almost that, 30 seconds.
So my question is, kind of if you share my view on the changing role of judges and how you see yourself kind of in that larger landscape.
Well, I definitely believe we need to be proactive to prevent crime and to get to the children young. When I have the classrooms that come into my courtroom for a field trip, I get off the bench all the time if I'm in the middle, unless I'm in the middle of a preliminary hearing or something. I always get off the bench, take time to get off the bench and go talk to them, whether they're 5th graders or whether they're 12th graders. And what I tell them is what I honestly believe. And that is about, I'm going to guess and say about 85 to 90% of the defendants we see in our courtroom, and it doesn't matter what the crime is that they're being accused of, whether it's domestic violence, DUI, possession of stolen vehicle, shoplifting at Macy's, what have you, there is an underlying substance abuse problem. And what I tell the children are, these people are not born bad people. They're born good people, and they get addicted to drugs or alcohol, and they start to make very bad choices. And the very bad choices lead them into justice court or district court. And in that regard, I try to tell the kids, you know, you have to really pay attention to what you learn in DARE. And now even the DARE program's been cut back, but you have to pay attention to what you learn in DARE, because when somebody shows you that drug when you're in 7th grade, you have to turn around, because that drug will do something physiological to your brain, and it will take control over your brain and take control over your decisions. And then you will end up in front of me. The other thing I'm trying to do personally on a proactive basis is I mentor at-risk high school students. I'm part of the Reclaim Your Future program at the Clark County School District. And every year I'm assigned one mentee, and that mentee is not on track to graduate, whether it be through proficiency testing or credit-wise. And we meet with them once a week for an hour, and we meet with them at the school, and we talk about goals after high school. I mean, not only do we talk about the first step is getting your GED or your high school diploma, really, but the second step is what do you want to do? Because a lot of these children just need, frankly, a cheerleader to bounce some ideas off of. Excuse me. So
I think it's a little bit longer. I'm a teacher. That's my first job, so when I heard the education thing, I let you run with it.
Oh, okay.
The tiny stuff.
Okay, sorry.
No, good.
And of course, we have specialty court programs.
And I was so listening so intently to what you were saying, I completely forgot what that
I
is.
know, I'm supposed to be watching him, I'm sorry.
Well, like I said, I think I'm allowed the discretion to allow the answer to go a little further if it's something that'll be germane, and that's a very good one.
Well, and we also have specialty court programs. We have justice court specialty program, and when somebody is going up to district court, we have the specialty courts in district court as well. So we try to do what we can. Of course, everything relies on funding. I mean, the bottom line is everything relies on funding. There's only so many people that these drug courts can take. We then look for outside sources, such as Salvation Army, West Care, things like that. We offer them to get sometimes dismissals on their cases if they satisfy those types of treatment programs.
Thank you. Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Judge Sullivan, for being here. I have kind of a specific question. I wonder if you can share with us what sort of changes have occurred in getting search warrants since the case back in 2010 with Brian Yant and Trevon Cole.
In Trevon Cole?
Yes.
Well, the Trevon Cole was the incident, and I actually signed that search warrant.
That's the reason why I was asking you the question.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry. Well, first of all, you know, my judicial canons say that I can't talk about a specific case.
Okay.
Hold on, let me just give a caveat. That I can't talk about a specific case that my comments might impact something going on in the case. To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing going on in that case. Obviously, Mr. Cole is deceased, so there was no criminal charges that stem from that. I believe I don't know frankly if that was back when there was a coroner's inquest or whether the inquest situation had changed and went to the review process, but I think that's been resolved as well. So to answer your specific question, as far as I know, at least from the judge's aspect, nothing has changed. Our statute says that it's our duty to entertain and issue search warrants, both in person with an officer in front of you and by telephone, by swearing the officer in if they can't get to you personally. Don't quote me because I have not seen that warrant since around the time of the incident, but I believe that warrant was done in person. Don't quote me because I can't remember, we do a lot of warrants. But that warrant was done in person. If that's the detective you named, I don't really remember the detective's name, but if that's who it is. But the bottom line is we're not only authorized under 179 to do search warrants both in person and on the phone, but it is part of our duty as a justice of the peace and as a district court judge. So for procedures that have changed, that as far as I know, there have been no procedures changed on the justice court level from the judicial aspect. I don't know if there's been any by way of Metro or the district attorney's office.
Thank you.
Brett?
Yeah, this is a more personal question. How has your life changed since you became a judge, and what do you like the most and the least about it?
The most I like about it is dealing with the individual people, whether they are criminal defendants or whether when I do a civil track, they are people representing themselves. I know sometimes people that represent themselves make judges' hair on the back of their neck stand up, but I just love dealing with people. I like to think I'm a personable person, and I try not to talk over their head. I try to explain everything that's going on. Now, I talk rather fast, and sometimes we have 100 cases on our calendar for an hour calendar, but I try to make sure they understand everything that's going on, and I really do like dealing with the people. I'm born, like Mr. Brown said, I'm born and bred here, which leads me to the thing I like least about my job, which is this is, in my view, and maybe it's a distorted view, but it's a totally different city from when I grew up. When I grew up, I could frankly walk home from my girlfriend's house at 12 at night, an hour and a half, a mile and a half away, and not be bothered by anybody, not see anybody roaming the streets looking for trouble, and it's very disheartening that we have so much crime in the city.
Thank you.
And sometimes I leave the bench in tears. I have to take a recess because something has gotten me so upset, but at least I know I can get up and leave.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Major?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. The rules permit one question, so I'm going to ask you a compound question, if that's okay.
I don't object.
I just want to get your thoughts on two items. The first one is the need for an appeals court in the state of Nevada. And the second issue is the use of tentative rulings. We use them in California. It streamlines the process, our motions, practice. And I want to see about your thoughts about tentative rulings here in Clark County.
To answer your first question, I believe we need an appellate court due to the length of time it has taken the Supreme Court, and it's not due to lack of effort or lack of work to get decisions down in very important cases. I believe we need an appellate court. I watched a presentation by Judge Hardesty a couple of weeks ago, and he completely sold me. One of the problems he noticed, and the Supreme Court has noticed, is that unfortunately the lawyers aren't even educated at what types of cases would be diverted to that appellate court. And so they're really trying to take a proactive stance this time around to educate the public on what that appellate court would do, and really the very minuscule amount of funds that it will take to operate that appellate court. And your second question was tentative rulings. Do you mean, well, I don't issue tentative rulings. I read everything in front of me, and I take the bench and I say, look, I've read everything, and if I've read cases, I tell them which cases I've read, and I basically tell them you can make an argument, and I have a preliminary decision in my mind based upon the documents, but I always give them a last word. I always let them argue to possibly change my mind or bring something to my attention that I didn't know from the briefs. But we don't issue tentative written rulings.
Correct. And
in justice court.
That's what I was inquiring about. In California, they'll issue a ruling, and if you want to have a subsequent hearing on it, you can, or you can stand on the actual ruling itself. And it allows the courts to removes the unnecessary appearances on some of the routine matters?
We don't have that much written motion work in justice court in the criminal side of things. Now, certainly on the civil side of things, absolutely. They should be expected to do their written briefs. There's not much more you can tell in an oral argument that cannot be stated in the written briefs. So I think it's probably more work for the judge, but it would save on the hearing, actually holding the hearings and having argument and having lawyers come to court. So while I'm not real familiar with a tentative ruling formal process, I don't know that I would be against it. It certainly, I read everything that somebody gives to me. So I've made a ruling pretty much based upon the pleadings. Now, you might be able to convince me otherwise or tell me something in oral argument, which I think lawyers should be entitled to, but for the most part, they should put everything in their briefs.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Babcock? Oh, are you, okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm not watching your hand, sorry.
No, no,
So just tell me.
I haven't been doing anything with
Okay.
him, so I'll let you know. I'll get hold of you. Please? Stuart, yes.
Sure. Hi, good morning, Your Honor. You spoke a little bit about the civil being off the map, so I'm going to ask you some question.
Okay.
Over the course of many years, we've seen a rather extensive expanse of the use of the Commerce Clause. And I'd like for you to speak and tell me a little about between the era of Lochner decisions and the current Commerce Clause allowances that the Supreme Court has made. Where do you fall? How do you see that?
The Commerce Clause in what respect pertaining to the civil
Well,
work that we do, which is limited?
sure. I mean, in this case, not necessarily concerning your current judicial duties, but generally, your opinion legally. I mean, you can look at the Lochner cases as a number of things where where government tried to position itself in commerce to change things for sensibly good purposes. And the reverse has happened also, so I'm curious how you see that.
Well, for instance, one thing we don't have in Nevada, and many states do have, is a usury law.
Yeah.
And we have to apply the law, and we actually see the fact that we don't have a usury law initiated by the legislature, which is backbone with the government. We do see that in justice court because we see a lot of payday loans and we see a lot of short-term loans. So those are the loans that have great interest rates attached to them, and I'm sure you see the media where people just get completely upside down, and I believe that to be true. We, as the Justice Court, we have to comply with the fact that the absence of a usury law, so to speak, but I believe, I don't know how many states are lacking a usury law, but we are lacking a usury law, and to the extent somebody could get behind it and initiate a usury law, and I don't know what the history is on that, if it's ever been attempted. But I think based upon the payday loan situation trying to get a little out of control, that we could use a usury law.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good day, Judge.
Hi.
I guess mic's on now. To go back to
I can't read your name.
my name is Jameson Ahern.
Oh, okay. Hi, Mr. Ahern.
To kind of go back where Judge Sullivan started with the PTSD. PTSD can be suffered by veterans as well as police officers also. And my question is, because there is a certain stigma for combat veterans as well as minority males that they carry on the street, what part do you believe you can play in your capacity as judge in preventing what's basically more slayings of veterans and minorities, males, in confrontation with police officers who can sometimes actually be adrenaline-addicted individuals?
Well, you know, obviously I'm not involved with Metro. I'm not involved with Metro training. To the extent we see those defendants before something like that happens, and we can get them help, either through the Veterans Court or through mental health court, and get them medicated properly. I mean, that's what mental health court does. It not only treats their psychoses and such, but it gets them medicated, it gets their medication balanced, and keeps them on the medication to where hopefully they don't go out and encounter Metro and have an issue with Metro. I do agree with you that Metro does, as far as I know, does not have a system. I mean, when they encounter somebody on the street, whatever that person may or may not be doing, they don't know what that person's background is. I mean, it could be me and a female, a Caucasian female, and I could have PTSD. So I'm not gonna look like I have PTSD, and they might not think I have PTSD, but lo and behold, I do, and I may do something that causes a reaction by them. I had a defendant in custody the other day, and granted, he's being charged with murder, so he's not probably going into Veterans Court, but he was having an issue in the jail with PTSD. His counsel argued on a status check, his counsel argued that he was not getting any medication for his PTSD because he hadn't seen the jail psychiatrist. So what I told this defendant was, I will, there's not a lot I can do for you, but I can order the jail to have the psychiatrist see you. And I can't say that he or she is going to prescribe you medication, or what type of medication they're going to prescribe you, if any, because they were talking about a particular medication he had been on that he was not receiving in the jail. But I said, I will do what I can to make sure that you are seen by the psychiatrist. And I status checked it for a week, and they came back in a week, and I asked this defendant, did you see the psychiatrist? And he said, I absolutely did. He came to see me the next day, and he prescribed me medication, and I'm feeling much better. So to the extent when we're dealing with a criminal case, we can handle something like that. There are small things like that we can try, but out on the street, when they're encountering these people, and they don't know who they're encountering, I don't know that there's anything that the Justice of the Peace can do.
And as far as addressing the police officers that may also have PTSD?
Well, I think that they have their own internal benefits, so to speak, and I certainly hope they have their own screening process for that. It is amazing to me that I can sit in a prelim, several times a week and listen to officers testify that on a daily basis, they encounter individuals that they could use deadly force. They have the authority to use deadly force based upon the situation and circumstance, and they're able to control the situation by using non-lethal force or hands-on. So I'm hoping that Metro is analyzing that on who their veterans are and who's been to war, and not even their veterans, but because for instance, if they've been involved in a shooting, they might have PTSD just based upon a shooting. You don't have to be a veteran to have PTSD. You could be you could be a victim of a crime to have PTSD. You could be a police officer that just encounters bad circumstances all day, every day. But I don't know that there's anything we can do as the judges to involve ourselves in what's going on with the officers.
Thank you very much. I think that now concludes this panel time with Judge Sullivan.
Thank you.